you've been more skeptical about President Trump's negotiating tactic. But would you say that he's been a bit more effective to some extent?
Shery, it was the president who created the problem of our relationship with our traditional allies. The manner in which he brought up trade issues, starting first with using Section 232, which is a national security waiver to impose tariffs against our friends, including Canada, that caused a division among countries that should be united on removing trade barriers globally. So it started in a bad position, and it's hurt a lot of companies. We know a lot of companies in the supply chain are feeling this. We know what has happened with the farmers. He's had now to announce that he's going to give handouts to the farmers rather than markets to the farmers. So there is a problem that the president has created in the manner that he has raised these trade issues. It's certainly good news to see that we're getting a so-called trade truce in Europe. That I think is a welcome sign, but quite frankly, we should be having much better strategies in dealing with trade issues globally using our traditional partners.
And yet you've told us on this show that Europe needs to be more energy independent. This pledge by Europeans to buy more LNG from the U.S., how much will it help on this front?
Well, I think that is true. I mean, we know that Russia uses energy as a weapon. We need to make sure Europe is not as dependent upon Russian oil. So it's important to diversify, and I think the United States can help in that regard in regards to LNG. So, yes, I agree with those strategies. We were moving in those directions. But quite frankly, when you challenge our traditional trade partners in Europe with tariffs, it doesn't necessarily get the type of response you want from their political system. So I still believe the president's way of doing business here has created a lot of uncertainty, which is not good.
Well, fair enough, Senator, and you may quibble or disagree with the way he's gone about it, but isn't there at least the prospect, from what's been said so far, we don't know what really the deal will be, but isn't there a prospect for lowering not just tariffs, but also non-tariff barriers to trade that really should have been done some time ago?
We'll wait to see. We were certainly wanted to enter into a trade agreement with Europe. That was on the table before the Trump administration took office. We do need to remove some of the barriers that exist between Europe and the United States. So that's one of the reasons why it started in the last administration. There were talks about a trade agreement with Europe. So we certainly wanted that.
And also U.S. Trade Representative Lighthizer today saying that we're very close to finishing an agreement on Nafta. Even if an agreement is made by the negotiators, is there a time in Congress to actually get a vote on this year?
I've been told that it's unlikely that Nafta will come before Congress before the end of the year, either as a lame duck, but more likely next year. So I don't think it's likely that we will get it before the elections. I think we all would welcome an agreement that modernizes Nafta, so we hope that we are successful in reaching that agreement.
Now, on the China trade front, we've also heard from Chinese regulators that they're not approving that $43 billion Qualcomm NXP Semiconductors deal, so that was scrapped. Are you concerned that there will be more fallout on other U.S. companies trying to do business in China?
When you take a look at the country of the greatest interest to the United States, and quite frankly our traditional trading partners, it's China. China has many obstacles to free trade. We know what they do with intellectual property. They've manipulated currency. There's all types of problems with China. I think the major complaint I've heard from both Democrats and Republicans and our traditional trading partners is why didn't the president concentrate on China, get us all engaged in a unified policy in order to bring down the barriers to free trade and fair trade in China. He didn't do that. Instead, of course, he first acted against our traditional allies. So yes, there's a major areas of concern about China. We need to be aggressive in dealing with that, and I think we need to engage our traditional trading partners in doing that.
Senator, as you suggest, there's a pretty full agenda that you have in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, but it appears that the president has put another item potentially on that agenda today because he's tweeted out today, as you know, the United States will impose large sanctions on Turkey for their long-time detainment of Pastor Andrew Brunson, a great Christian family man and wonderful human being. He said this innocent man of faith should be released immediately. I'm sure you are fully up to speed on this. Do you agree with the president the United States should be putting maximum pressure on Turkey to release Pastor Brunson?
Well, David, I think you're giving us more credit, any of us more credit than we deserve when you say we're fully up to speed as to what the president is saying and doing. He continuously surprises us by his tweets. We very much want to see Mr. Brunson return to the United States. It was good news this week when he was released to home detention rather than being incarcerated. That was a very positive sign, and I think we all responded that way. He should be home here in the United States. Turkey is a NATO partner. There is no justification for him not being returned here to the United States.
Senator, I also want to turn to Russia, another country where there already are sanctions. There were, of course, those hearings yesterday with Secretary Pompeo about what exactly happened over in Helsinki. I know you're particularly concerned about what might have been said behind closed doors about the Magnitsky Act. Give us your sense. You have legislation you proposed with Senator McCain.
Well, I asked that specific question of Secretary Pompeo and did not really get a direct answer. I asked whether there was conversations between Mr. Putin and President Trump on these subjects, and all the secretary said is there's no change in policy. What came out at this hearing is that the secretary indicates the policy's the same, although the president has said different things over time. We don't know what happened in that one-on-one meeting. So, yes, Senator McCain and I have filed legislation that would require the president to come to Congress before taking any of the names off of the Magnitsky list, so that it was clear that that was a very sensitive issue to Mr. Putin, and we don't want to see Mr. Putin get relief from the Magnitsky sanction law, which sanctions individuals who violated the basic rights of Sergei Magnitsky.
At least President Putin's visit to Washington has been postponed until 2019. Are you taking that as a good sign that the administration is listening to Congress?
I couldn't understand how he could possibly be here in September to follow up on the understandings of what happened in Helsinki when we don't know what the understandings were, and no one's working on a follow-up to the understandings because the president hasn't told us what those understandings are. So it made no sense for him to come this fall. We certainly encourage the president to reach out and talk to Mr. Putin. We think, though, when you bring him here to the United States, which should be preserved for really some justified reason, we don't understand yet why there should be a summit held in the United States based upon not knowing what happened in Helsinki.